The comment they made that she never forgot. The smell of their secret lover's cologne that seeped in the seams of their clothes. The unfamiliar underwear. The last shovel of dirt. The tales of her former life. The empty fridge, the overdraft. Haters, doubters, rumor spreaders. The dying love. The wet t-shirt. The bloody knuckles. The broken mirror. Betrayal, frustration, resentment, regret, self-hatred, pain. They can burn in the belly of a man. Fuel him. Drive him to success. To higher ground. Fuck you. I'll show you. My brother, if pain is all you have, use it. But it can't be sustained forever. That same fire will consume you. Burn a hole in your heart. Burn the bridges to the people that you love. This is how villains are born. The tyrannical king, the black witch, the abusive father, the narcissistic mother. If pain is your primary fuel source, you might run 1,000 miles and wake up one day only to realize that you were going in the wrong way. In that moment, you will have never been more free, but you'll have never been more alone. Eventually, you have to learn to harness love. It can be intoxicating when you're in that place, when your back's against the wall, the dog's nipping at your heels, the devil's at the door. Some of us might find that something peculiar happens. For the first time, that inner critic is silent. That voice of doubt, of inhibition. Anger is an extremely powerful emotion. It can blow the chains right off. There's no more cognitive dissonance, no more conflict of interest. For once, all of you is on the same side. By externalizing, by creating an enemy, all the forces inside us unite for war. Sometimes I think that this kind of behavior manifests itself in the hardcore social justice warrior types, right? Some, not all. They've created their enemy. The system, the man, men, women, politicians. They whitewash the complexities and nuances of life and create an effigy, an outlet for their frustrations. Sometimes that's valid, man. Sometimes that's necessary. It's always going to be easier to point the finger than to look in the mirror. But as a rule of thumb, the less there is to blame, the better. Because if the problem is outside of yourself, the solution is too. Because if your life is their fault, it's their responsibility to fix it. And that's a day that never comes. You'll wait there forever. That's the trade-off. You have your excuse, but you still ain't got no solution. You have somewhere to vent your frustrations, but your life is still the way it is. It's in that moment you give your power away, coming back. And so we harness this dark energy. We lock in. Finally we're consistent. All of the feelings that had once got in the way. Fear, doubt, laziness, procrastination, distraction, boredom. Finally, they're put to rest. And we experience how life can be when we're no longer faced with these hindrances. The numbers go up. The weight comes off. The veins start showing. Pause. You meet somebody new. The pressure releases. You're in a new place. You're on a new level. You take a moment to celebrate. You take your foot off the gas. You smell the roses. And there's nothing wrong with that. But all things tend towards chaos. That's the law of entropy. If you stop tending your garden, it don't take long for new weeds to appear. So you no longer have the fuel source that got you here at your disposal. Things are peachy. Momentum starts to wane. You're happy but you're growing stagnant. And we've all heard that quote by the marvelous Marvin Hagler, ex-boxer. It's tough to get out of bed to do road work at 5 a.m. in the morning when you're sleeping in silk pajamas. We've earned these silk pajamas through vision, through discipline, through consistency. We wear them as a way of congratulating ourselves, of rewarding our work. But we gorge on the fruits of our labor. We get all fat and sassy. This often happens when a man meets a woman. You get your shit together, you're hitting the gym, you got your money right, things are looking good, it's in you, you're walking with it. It emanates from you. You attract the woman. Boom! Sucked into the vortex of that good loving. There's nothing wrong with that either. But it's a powerful force, bro. That high that you got from being on your mission and on your purpose gets replaced with a high of a blossoming new love. And then she may or may not become unattracted to you because you're not the same dude that she got in the relationship with. That's another story. Here's the thing. We may not even realize it, but what we've done is associated pain with progress. We long for that drive that we had when our back was up against the wall. And so, in our desperation, what do? We self-sabotage. We create situations for ourselves that stir up those old feelings in the hopes that our motivation might return with the same gusto. We start fights over BS. We find problems where there aren't any. We pick the bottle back up. We unravel. We fall off. And we allow it to happen. Subconsciously believing that by creating these situations, through our downfall, we'll finally compromise ourselves enough to hit rock bottom, where at last we'll be forced to bounce back. But you can do a hell of a lot of damage in the meantime, to your health, to your progress, to your relationships. Or perhaps we continue to ride these winds of dark energy. We begin to develop an eye for them. The filter that we place over our perception begins to take on a dark hue, like the opposite of rose-tinted glasses. We begin to see the world as a cruel and hostile place. We grow callous, hot-headed, hard-hearted, heavy-handed, and we fail to see the beauty in the world around us, and the good in people, the things that we ought to be grateful for. And we can become unbalanced. Mind over spirit, status over connection, money over meaning, power over love, Cain over Abel, Sith over Jedi, Slytherin over Gryffindor. Bars! But the line separating good and evil passes through every human heart. Solzhenitsyn. And it's a fine line at that. But if you train yourself to use pain as your primary motivator, pain becomes necessary for success. And if pain is necessary for success, you'll continue to compromise yourself in order to maintain progress. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And oftentimes, the pain you draw from comes from your relationships with the people closest to you. Because in some deranged way, the more it matters to you, the stronger the fire. The more it hurts, the more potent the dose. The more you love them, the more you push them away. This is self-defeating, bro. It's picking the scab, never letting the wound heal. It's a dog chasing his tail. It's the abused becoming the abuser. It can be the next link in the chain of generational trauma. I've done this so many times. I think many of us only learn this the hard way. For my come up in this journey, in the self-development game, you know, that's a title, but it's really just trying to evolve as a man. I found myself on this self-improvement seesaw, right? Like, I'd grind my way up to some new kind of point that I'd never been before, and then I'd self-sabotage, and I'd fall all the way back down. But this time, I went a little bit lower, because I was like, shit, I've done it again. And like, every next step along the way, you've already done before. So that same like excitement of momentum and new things opening up, it's been there. You know, like you get all the way to shredded and then you put it all back on and then you try to get shredded again, and it's like, fuck, this is just like a hamster wheel. I'm just running a hamster wheel here. I grind my ass off, get cozy, fall off, hit another new rock bottom, bounce up again. Bro, how many times will I climb the same ladder, miss the same rungs, feel the same splatter? It's unsustainable. It's ineffective. Dark energy is the fuel that burns hot, but it's corrosive for the engine. It's almost the equivalent of like procrastinating on a project until the last minute and relying purely on necessity to get it done. But the fact that it gets completed within that time frame is proof that you have the capacity to do that, and quickly if you really have to. So, what's the alternative? Purpose, vision, love. They're the limitless pill without the side effects. The high without the come down. But it can be harder to source and more difficult to maintain, especially in the beginning. And often it's less exciting because it doesn't flash, it glows. And this is why toxic relationships can be so captivating. But that's a topic for another day. So how do you make the switch? How can you have your cake and eat it too? Progress, growth, drive, success with balance, peace, harmony. A mission, a greater purpose, bigger than yourself, a dream, an ideal, a long-term mentality. Bro, it's difficult at the bottom. I understand this. I've been there. I've lived there. I've put myself there. Take a look at the hierarchy of needs. When those bottom pieces, physiological, safety, security, love, and belonging, are missing, it's not easy to look past where you're at. This is why ghettos stay ghettos and families stay broken. When you're starving, you don't have the patience for the long game. You just eat the seeds raw. You can't wait for the crops. So this is what you do. If you're at rock bottom, if your world's on fire, if pain is all you got, use it. But the second you can see clearly, put all of that energy into a vision for your life. Figure out what your ideal self, your ideal life looks like. Establish it further, cultivate it. Your ideal body, financial situation, relationship. Where do you live? What kind of house you got? How can you give back while having all your needs met in the process and enjoying it along the way? And if you struggle to initially, learn about the Japanese concept of ikigai. Ikigai?
Ikigai.
Ikigai, or your reason for being. Still the mind, dopamine detox, then get the pen out and write, brother. You plant that seed and you hold on to it daily. You water it, you nourish it. Every day you return to it, morning and night. Align your actions with it, one by one. Visualize, right? You'll find that eventually it excites you, especially once you got momentum. Become obsessed. In the same way that you held on to your pain, hold on to this vision. This is your healthy alternative. This is how you get the best out of both worlds. Infinite motivation without the suffering. The ability to harness dark energy is a skill, and it's a necessary one, because sometimes you're all out of aces, bro. But there's a duality to all things, and without its counterpart, you only have access to half of the energy available to you. Think of it that way. Reframe. Pain. You consume it, or it consumes you. And you could say it's better to be angry and progressing than depressed and wallowing, because a man's always got to keep it moving, and sometimes you don't have the luxury of positive thinking, or at least you don't yet have the skills or the tools required to reframe the situation. Somebody could tell you that when you're in that kind of place, and it's like, jog on. The winds of rage are powerful, but they're chaotic and unpredictable. Once you've worked your way out of that situation, and you will in time, when there's money in the bank, when the wound is healing, when the storm has passed and you can see clearly again, when you can afford to look ahead, it's time to lay down your arms, to put the sword down. Or in your bloodthirsty frenzy, you'll turn it towards the people around you, and eventually yourself. But, it stays by your side. You will need it again someday. Don't repress it, integrate it. Let pain launch the plane, and love sustain your flight. Let pain be the sprint, and love be the marathon. Both are necessary, but only one can sustain. The pain will only leave you when it's done teaching you. But you don't have to wait for the worst case scenario to turn things around. Underneath all the noise, that voice, your conscience, is always there. That small, quiet voice of what's right, of who you are, of what you're about, it's always there. Tune in and save yourself the suffering. A letter to myself.